So parents will experience such a wide range of emotions after delivering a premature or medically fragile baby. My daughter was born at 23 weeks, but from 17 weeks on, after I had a very loud, life-threatening and terrible hemorrhage, I was diagnosed with placenta prurita, and I was basically in the hospital admitted until she was born at 23 weeks gestation. So for me, the emotions began at that point. There's two sides to it. A lot of it was good, I guess, to have some warning, but then also you have more time to research on the internet all the things that can go wrong with a delivery, with a premature baby. So for my case, it began with some knowledge, but it's not the case for all parents.
So I was the parent that had the baby unexpectedly. My water broke in a grocery store bathroom outside of town, so we had to rush to the hospital. I got 30 hours of bed rest, and then boom, there she was born. So we had no time to prepare. Tell me about the first time you saw Joy in the NICU. What was that like?
Because of the complications of my delivery and the surgery, I wasn't able to see her for almost 3 days. So for me, I was asleep for the majority of the rest of that day of her delivery, and when I woke up, I was in the surgical ICU for a few days. And people were trying to show me pictures of her on phones, but I refused to see a picture because I was determined to meet her in person. And that first meeting was very emotional. I mean, I was still in a wheelchair, I couldn't move, and it only lasted maybe a minute or two, and they lowered the height of the incubator down so I could look at her. And after the shock, came and wore off, and the emotions came, and I cried for a few minutes, then I actually felt happy that I got to meet her. I felt like it was such a gift. At that point, we decided to name her Joy, because that's what I felt after all of the emotions
Absolutely.
went through their cycle. What about you?
I have to say, I saw her after the birth within an hour. I was taken down to the NICU on the stretcher, right out of labor and delivery, and delivered beside her. And I had to watch this baby screaming and crying and struggling with medical equipment, and I'm groggy. It's a little after midnight. I was a mess, and my emotions went really high. For me, that was overwhelming. Within minutes, they had me heading back to my room to go, quote unquote, rest, which I didn't do. I was very stressed. I was very worried about my daughter, and very stressful emotions, and I was afraid to cry. I was afraid to show that emotion. I thought they'll take my baby away from me. So I held it all in, all of it.
My daughter was in the NICU for 4 months, and I would say about 2 of those months were the most challenging. Because first of all, you're not feeling well, you're not sleeping, you're not yourself, you may or may not be recovering from some kind of procedure. And you do have to put on a face because you want to be positive, you want your baby to feel you and see you, not crying and not being over emotional all the time. And you also don't feel that you have, I think, a right to feel what you're feeling, because you have to just be focusing on your baby. And then you can throw in their siblings. I had 3 siblings at home, and they were small, and the guilt of not being with them, and then when you are in the NICU, and then the guilt of being home and not being at the NICU, and there's a lot of emotions involved with that, and that extends all the way until the day that you go home.
Right, and kangaroo care was really one of the first moments I felt like a mother. It was not just holding her the first time, it was kangaroo care, where I actually could see on the monitors how I was actually affecting her respiration rates and everything. I could see the effect right there in front of me. And my husband said, "You've got to see her face." And I'm like, well, she's down here. I can't see anything. Take a picture, do something. I need to see. And sure enough, this beautiful, blissful look on her face. I was like, I did that. I helped do that.
Yeah.
I actually did something to help my child, rather than what I felt like, which is I had failed my child in so many ways. And so many parents feel like that throughout the NICU stay and for many years afterwards. So I definitely have to say that once discharge day came, those emotions didn't go away. They didn't go away for you either, did they?
Discharge day is a mix of all kinds of emotions, because you're very happy that you finally get to bring your baby home and join your family. Yet it's so scary because you no longer have the nurses and the doctors there to let you know if something's wrong, or for you to tell something's wrong, and you won't be able to get the immediate assistance anymore. And for us, that's when a lot of the emotions finally set in, because you're alone with your baby and you really are responsible for all of it. And if something goes wrong, you're the only person there, and then you would feel that that's your fault, even though it wouldn't be. For me personally, I slept in her room for almost, I guess I would say about maybe 8 months or so, until I felt comfortable enough to leave.
Right.
And there's a whole lot of emotions involved in that too.
Becky was in for 38 days, which is shorter, but it was still had its roller coaster. I think we were more compressed in our roller coaster. We definitely had days that were beautiful, things were going great, and then like the next day everything went downhill. We almost lost her several times during the NICU stay, and then going home was almost as traumatic because we had to bring her home on medical equipment. So for us, it was just constant emotions. And I remember feeling like I was trying to connect with my daughter. I was trying to bond with her, and that really was very hard. Trying to figure out a way to get around the medical equipment, trying to get around the team, trying to be a voice for my daughter when I didn't feel like a voice at all, meant that I had to really struggle with my emotions and try to instill some confidence in myself. That was really, really hard.